Welterweight set to scrap. UFC 284 on the main card. The hometown guy, Perth, Australia's own Jack Della Maddalena out of Scrappy MMA, taking on Rude Boy Randy Brown. Matt, people love your sound bites when you sing it. Can you let us have a little bit?
I'm a rude boy. I'm not going to keep on going after that, but I am so excited for this fight, Craig. This is one of those fights where I don't need to see press conferences like Michael Chiesa, Kevin Lee don't talk about my mom. I don't need to see like Khabib, Conor where it gets ugly. This is one of those fights where it just sells itself. You have Randy Brown, who was one of those prospects that had a lot of hype, suffered some defeats on his way up to the top 15, but then was able to somewhat reinvent himself in his whole career, and now he's on this incredible run that he's been able to maintain throughout his last number of fights and throughout the last couple of years. But he finds himself in a very unique position for a guy like Randy Brown to find himself at this stage of his career. He's now, and this is going to be used in a negative light, but I don't mean it this way. He's kind of gatekeeping the top 15 from Jack Della Maddalena this weekend, and that's a very important place to find himself, because if you beat Maddalena, who might be the most hyped up prospect, non-top 15 at the moment, because of course you've got like Shavkat out there, then Randy Brown's going to find himself in a huge fight his next time out.
And it's weird to say gatekeeper when a guy's won 4 fights in a row
Exactly.
and built himself up. But Randy Brown, he debuted way back in 2016 with UFC after winning at Ring of Combat. Dana White's looking for a fight. He took on Matt Dwyer in his debut. And since then for Brown, it's been an interesting cast of characters. Like he's had a couple of interesting fights against now top guys. Bilal Muhammad, Nico Price, Vicente Luque. He's got that crazy performance bonus win over Warley Alves. He's got a finish win over Brian Barberena. He's fought like guys like Brian Camozzi and Eric Montano. But the last 4 fights, Alex Oliveira, the one-arm rear naked choke, the win over Jared Gooden, he beats Chaos Williams by split, and then he goes out there, and listen, you guys might not like him, but Francisco Trinaldo fought 26 times in the UFC, went 18-8, and Randy Brown said, hey, Francisco, you like being a mainstay in the UFC's welterweight division and lightweight? Rip that contract, bud. Go
44.
Back to Brazil, have fun. Randy Brown gets a win there. Now, he drops Trinaldo early. He struggled in some of the wrestling. And I went and I listened to an interview that James Lynch did with Randy Brown before this fight. And Randy Brown was really coy. And usually, I always watch Randy Brown interviews. I like to listen to him talk about his camps and about everything that's going on in his life. And he touched on the fact that he used to be at King's. And then he went back to New York. So lately he's been training at a Budokan Martial Arts Academy, a little bit at Belmore Kickboxing, kind of cross training in and around. And then he kind of like let it slip, and it's on his Instagram, that he's training out of Martinez MMA. So you click there. What's Martinez MMA? Well, it's Daniel Gracie's gym. Well, who's he training with? Sean Brady and Joe Pyfer to get ready for a matchup like this. Now, he wouldn't necessarily say who his corner was. He wouldn't say what they were working on. He played it cool and coy with Lynch over there. So for Randy Brown, I'm eager to see what that means in a matchup like this against Jack Della, because Brown is very good at jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yeah.
Very sneaky. I know the Nico Price hammer fist, whatever. However, Randy Brown's offensive wrestling isn't necessarily the tool that got him to the dance. We don't see it all that often. I'd be eager to see if this is what we see against Jack Della, because Della, what he struggled with on the regional scene before he's dusted everybody, was getting held up against the cage and sometimes getting taken down.
And now he dusts everybody and knocks them out. This is the weird thing, though. I kind of disagree with what you say about Brown's wrestling for this only purpose. That's the first thing I think about when I think about Randy Brown. It's just he's become something far more than just that. Like, wrestling was what Randy Brown was known for early on in his UFC career. That's why it was a little upsetting. Not upsetting, but it was surprising to see Bilal Muhammad go out there and just out-wrestle him with such consistency. Now, we know how good of a fighter Bilal Muhammad is, especially in hindsight, but for Brown, that was the thing that I always thought about when I thought about Randy Brown's game. But he has become much more than he ever was just with wrestling. He has great long-range strikes. He has very good straights from the outside. He has good kicks. But the thing about Randy Brown that I'm curious to see, especially in this matchup, is it going to take him time to find his rhythm? Because that's the thing about Randy Brown. When he gets into the flow of a fight, when he can find his combinations, land those front kicks up the middle like Tony Ferguson, because Randy Brown has really good front kicks, he is a MFer to deal with. But the thing is, when guys get on the inside of that range, when they make it an ugly fight, Brown can struggle in some of those areas. Now, I know Vicente Luque is probably the name that I'm going to bring up when I say guys who have made him feel uncomfortable in those positions, and Jack Della Maddalena probably isn't on that level of striker, at least yet in his career, but I do think Maddalena has some of the positives, at least the aggressiveness of a guy like Vicente Luque, and I think his boxing is going to offer Randy Brown a lot of troubles, but I do agree with you. I think if Brown does decide to use a lot more of a grappling mindset and a grappling game plan, which would be suggested if you do look at him training with a guy like Sean Brady and Joe Pyfer, that should help him quite a bit in this matchup, because on the feet, this can be a difficult fight for Brown. I like him at the longest range with his kicks, but I do think that once this fight gets into that boxing clinch work, Maddalena is just so damaging in that spot.
Yeah, Randy Brown sometimes hangs out in the pocket for way too long, and as Teddy Atlas would say, like, you're waiting for that receipt, and you're gonna get it from a guy like Maddalena. And Maddalena, again, regional scene, eternal champ. He fought guys like Dimps Gillies that was able to kind of, again, hold him and work in some of that wrestling. So that's a fight that I go back to. But against Ange Loosa, 30-27, it was a really good competitive fight. Loosa brought it to him. He's now in the UFC, ex-MMA vet. I know you love that organization. I do. Never miss the shows. But in the UFC, 3 straight first-round knockouts, 2 performance bonuses, fights dead game Pete Rodriguez, a man who sent Mike Jackson out of the UFC. Fought Ramazan Emeev, got taken down early, got back up again like Chumbawamba, finished him with the body shot, finished Danny Roberts with, well, it was a flurry, but it started with a body shot too. And against Danny Roberts, I'm sure Jack Della went out and watched that Mike Perry fight. We talked about it before the fight, because he fought just like that. Just stayed glued right in front of him, right in his face, knees, body, up to the head, mixing everything together like a vintage Mike Perry used to do.
Maddalena reminds me a little bit of like a prime Robbie Lawler. It's not a perfect example, but he's going to eat a shot to give his own shot. The difference is his shot is going to be so much bigger than anything you land, especially with your hands. But that's the thing about Maddalena. I don't think he's going to just win every fight on his way to the title by any means. I don't look at him as like a Shavkat Rakhmonov type of a prospect. I think Maddalena is probably going to lose a couple fights on his way up to that top 5, top 10 area, but fights like this against Randy Brown are going to get you more ready for those guys. And I know the odds are very heavily swayed towards Jack Della Maddalena, but this is a really difficult fight for him. But I have to mention this because I do in every Maddalena video we do. I was really impressed with the Ramzan Emeev fight. I know Ramzan Emeev is a nobody to a lot of you guys out there, but he's a very talented wrestler who is a really hard guy to get out of there and a really difficult guy to stop. I was impressed by what Maddalena was able to show with his skill set up until that point, because again, Emeev's not a name on your resume that's going to get you into the Hall of Fame, but it's a guy who's going to get you ready for those bigger names that could then get you into the, I don't know, Hall of Fame's a bit of a stretch,
like
but you get the idea.
2030, Jack Della Maddalena, he's champ, he retires. Dana White calls him up to the podium if he's still there, and Jack pulls out the paper and he goes, I'd like to thank Ramazan Emeev for testing me early on in my career. No, but a good win that he has there. I have a hard time with this one because, again, all the hype's behind Della.
Oh, yeah.
You like his leg kicks, you like his body work with his boxing. He doesn't tend to throw a lot of head kicks or kicks to the body. So Randy Brown, a little bit more multifaceted with some of that attack, just based on the fact that he utilizes kicks more. Now, Randy Brown, the book's been out on him a long time. He's got candlestick legs like you and I have. So I'm not making fun of him. I possess that same skill set. But I also
a skill set to have thin legs.
He probably takes leg kicks better than me.
I would say.
Definitely does, but he doesn't take them all that well. So that's one spot that he can struggle in. But again, from long range, I favor Brown. On the ground, I favor Randy Brown. In the clinch, bit of a toss-up because both guys have interesting games there. You mentioned Jack Della, about a 3-1 favorite in the matchup. We have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt. Surprise to us there to you. Again, fans, they'd be wild. I expect them to be all the way.
I think this one will be close, though, honestly.
I expect them to be all the way on one side. Okay, I'm going to say over-under 82.5% Della.
I think they'll be under.
Think they're going to be under? They're over. 756 total votes, 86% Della, 83% by knockout for the 14% that are Brown, 66% by decision. Randy Brown's one of those guys that could actually take Jack Della into the deep waters.
Oh, yeah.
I know you mentioned that Ramazan Emeev fight. Ramazan will wrestle round 1, round 2, round 3. He's a kickboxer, but in round 1, he took him down. They get back up. Della finishes him. So we didn't even get to see the continuation there.
No, but that was a nice thing to see, though, just him be able to get back up to his feet after the initial takedown. Because, again, Ramazan Emeev is really good at just laying on top of guys and not doing a whole lot of anything. So it was nice to see Maddalena just be able to get back up to his feet from that position and land damaging shots. And that's the thing. Randy Brown gets hit. I know he's really good at that long distance, but he pulls back with his head up a little bit. He gets up against the cage sometimes, and he does find himself in that Anthony Smith position where you've got your back up against the cage, you're kind of just throwing out front kicks, trying to create distance. If you do that against Jack Della Maddalena, he's going to throw that leg to the side, answer with a combination, and probably get you out of there. I think this is a great test for Maddalena, but I do expect him to win this fight.
Randy Brown with that ground game, training with Pyfer, Brady, and Daniel Gracie, like that gym was the hotness. And then a lot of the guys lost, except for Joe Pyfer. But Sabatini lost, Brady lost. They didn't look good in those fights. But when you do look at this matchup, Randy Brown has all of those skill sets and all of those things that you want answered. And we saw that last week. And we talked about a fight just like this, with odds just like this. Yusaku Kinoshita taking on Adam Fugett. And we said in that matchup,
Brown's a lot better than Fugett.
Fugett's such a good striker. He's good with his wrestling. He has all those checks. And then all of a sudden he ends up getting the win over the hype prospect in Kinoshita. But in this matchup, Matt, I like that boxing out of Maddalena. The fact that he can back guys up and the length, all of a sudden, it shrinks, and it's not a giant advantage. And Randy Brown's one of those guys. 5 inches in height, and what? He's got 4 inches in height, 5 inches in reach. He uses those advantages to his benefit.
Until they get taken away, though.
When it's in the center of the cage. Yeah. The one thing I didn't like out of Brown his last time out, I love the fact that he dropped Trinaldo. I love the fact that it was kind of back and forth with the wrestling and the grappling. He slowed in the third round, and it wasn't a good look. And so for me, I worry about that in this fight against Della, with the fact that Della's fighting like legit. He is the hometown fighter in Perth. There's other Australians on the card. This guy gets to wake up and probably, it's not a walk, but wake up and walk over, and then he's ready to fight. So
that's why it sucks that Randy Brown's 4-fight win streak has led to this for him.
Yeah.
Like, you would expect him to get, like, I know I brought up Robbie Lawler before, but again, just one of those aging guys who was a big name, maybe try to build up Randy Brown a bit off that. No, it's, hey, you've won 4 fights in a row, you look really good. You have to fight up one of the most hype prospects we've had in a couple of years now, who's not a great stylistic matchup for you.
Both of us in the matchup going with Australia's Jack Della Maddalena to get the win. Let us know down below in the comments section who you have. Man, I love a Rude Boy Randy Brown fight. Matt loves singing Rihanna. Can't wait for the co-main event. Featherweight title. Interim strap on the line. Make sure you check it out. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.